RTX 5090, 32 gig of RAM. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and load. Just so we're at the same time of day when we start. Wouldn't want that to disturb the testing. Okay, I guess one of the things about Hogwarts Legacy is even at the same time of day, it's not always the same time of day. Apparently it is now sunny instead of dark at night. Super irritating. Like, what is the purpose of a save game if it doesn't load you into the same spot? All right, let's show the settings. So right now, we've got windowed full screen, 4K, DLSS quality enabled. This is transformer mode. It should be, because the patch just came out. Frame generation right now is off. You can see that I've got 2x, 3x, and 4x now. Come over to the settings, recommended, everything maxed out. Great. So let's go back to the test. Okay. We'll see if it's any smoother on the 5090 than it was on the 4090. And the answer, as you could probably guess, is going to be no, it's not. There's plenty of those spikes and stutters on the frame time graph in the top left, which is why I'm live streaming this. I wanted you to be able to see that. I could throw up a benchmark chart. I could also record a video, stream a video from the PC while testing, but then you don't know if the recording is actually interfering with the play or the performance. So I like to do it from my phone this way, just for the purposes of getting a quick and dirty thing up. This patch just came out, I think this morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, something like that. Performance, it's better when you're still, generally speaking, but as I'm running around, I'm basically getting 55-ish, 54, 53 frames per second on average with the 5090. And the reason is because, as I said in the last live stream on the 4090, all of these ray tracing calculations on Unreal Engine 4, and that includes like ray reconstruction, it's not full path tracing or full ray tracing. See, 55 frames per second, 32 1% lows. All those ray tracing calculations are really heavy on the CPU, especially in Unreal Engine 4. The experience overall ends up being pretty lousy, and it has been since Hogwarts Legacy came out. So that takes care of 4K with quality mode upscaling. Let's go ahead and turn on 2x frame generation. Oh, we had ray reconstruction off. Let's turn this back off. That's funny. I had it on before, but it got turned off when I restarted and swapped cards. I don't know why. Let's try this again. See how much better it looks? No? I wonder if it runs any better. Let's see. So we were getting like 54, 53 frames per second on average before. Spikiness isn't any better. I honestly couldn't tell you without recording and doing screen captures whether ray reconstruction is really making this look a lot better. I think it's running a bit faster. That wouldn't be unheard of because the ray reconstruction can combine multiple denoising algorithms. Yeah, so 55 frames per second, 30 minimums. The minimums are about the same. You wouldn't expect those to change too much, but the average did go up like 1 or 2 frames per second. And that's because instead of running potentially 3 or 4 custom denoisers to try and clean up the image, because I don't think they ray trace every single pixel is the idea. I mean, I'm doing upscaling too with DLSS, but because they don't ray trace every single pixel and then they do denoising to try and smooth out the results, and that's what Pixar does in their movies too. Having the AI ray reconstruction can actually boost performance. Okay, little bit faster. 54 average, 34 1% lows. Now, let's turn on frame generation. So frame generation, because we're pretty much CPU limited, it should give really good scaling. And of course, because RTSS doesn't want to use MS between display change, it uses milliseconds between presents. So this gets all screwed up. But here we go. 100, it looks pretty close to what we were getting on the 4090, which if we're CPU limited would make sense. This is kind of a bad game for benchmarking because the time of day and weather are randomized. Well, not the time of day I don't think is randomized, but it's not static like you would expect it to be. Like I have a save game, and when I load that save game, sometimes it's sunny like you're seeing here. Sometimes it's early morning and rainy, or at least overcast and rainy. I'm not sure what the deal is. I know it's in the UK, so maybe it's just always overcast, and every now and again you get lucky and it's sunny. 112 average FPS, 49 on the 1% lows. So frame gen does smooth things out, but it's not a panacea. It's not perfect. I think in a game like Hogwarts Legacy, when you're running at this level of performance, frame gen is actually pretty beneficial. It does smooth things out. All those little stutters, they become a little less noticeable. They're still there though. You can see all those spikes appearing on the frame time chart. But what I'm curious to see is what happens when we do multi-frame generation, MFG, with 4x and 3x. So we'll start with 3x just because we'll scale up. So we didn't quite double performance. We went from, what did I say, 54 to 113. Actually, that is double the performance. So yeah, we doubled performance by doing frame gen in Hogwarts Legacy. And now we're getting 170-ish. We'll see what the benchmark says. So I've got frame views running up in the top right corner, which it disappears when I'm logging frame times. Even with triple frame generation, 3x frame gen, so generating 2 frames, rendering the first and fourth frames and generating the 2 intermediate. So every third frame gets rendered. That doesn't eliminate all the spikes because the frame generation algorithm and multi-frame generation, they basically depend on steady pacing. 166 and 69 on that run. Let's run it again. 166 divided by 3 would be 156, 155, 155.3. So yeah, sorry, not 155, it'd be 55.3. So we are getting triple the performance and triple the frames to monitor rate. It's not really performance. The performance is still rendering at 55-ish frames per second, give or take. And they're using AI to generate these intermediate frames and smooth things out. And they're delaying the presentation of frames to the monitor because they've got to do that interpolation. But in a game like Hogwarts Legacy, it doesn't really feel bad. It doesn't feel like, oh man, this got slower. I mean, that's interesting. We're getting, I guess the time of day is changing and it might be getting lighter, meaning less demanding. I don't know. Afternoon is not as hard as morning, something like that. We're up to, what is that, 225? Yeah, so if nothing else, multi-frame generations is giving perfect scaling almost. Still spikiness. but the overall experience is not worse. And the thing is like, look at his robe, the way it renders. You can kind of tell that's not being framed, or sorry, that's not being generated or rendered normally every frame. So it's trying to do the interpolation. 222 and 81 is what that says. So yeah, perfect scaling. We're quadruple the performance of no frame gen on the 5090. And because I'm on a 240 hertz monitor here, kind of what you want and need for a 5090 card. But the result is, as you're running around, the movement of his robes looks just a little bit off, kind of funny. I mean, I don't think they look perfect anyway, but the frame generation and interpolating the way those things lift up, you're trying to, if you're rendering at 60 frames per second, you've got a 16 millisecond gap to fill with generated frames, 220 and 78. So yeah, perfect scaling, great. Nice job, NVIDIA. How does the game feel? Like, if you've played a game at 200 plus frames per second, the input response is basically instantaneous. It's so fast that you don't notice. If you look at the PC latency up here, the third line, I don't know if you can read that, it's small. It says 55 milliseconds. That is not instantaneous. And if I turn off frame gen, we'll go ultra performance mode, and we'll turn off frame gen. This is kind of basically about as fast as I could get the game to respond, probably. And let's see what latency looks like now. That must have turned off reflex, because now I'm getting 52 to 55 still. Is there a setting for reflex? Ray reconstruction? It says it's on. That's kind of suspect. I would expect the latency without frame generation to be closer to maybe 40 or 30 milliseconds, and that's not happening. But Hogwarts Legacy, not the best example of an engine and all that other stuff. It's Unreal Engine 4, as I said. The ray tracing stuff really kind of taxes the system a lot, the CPU especially. I wonder if I can turn off ray tracing live. Oh, so it says I need to restart. No, that helped. Oh, but we're doing, I don't know why I wonder what it needs to restart for. So ray tracing is all off now, which means obviously ray reconstruction goes off. And hey, look, let's do 4X. Let's go back to quality mode. See what that looks like. This should be in the, yeah, 400 frames per second. We're maxing out the monitor. And just to see what this looks like. I mean, when you're rendering this fast, any stuttering becomes far less noticeable. So this is what I'm saying, like, here, multi-frame gen running at close to 400 frames per second, you don't feel additional latency. I don't feel additional latency. Some teenager on speed might, but I don't feel the added latency. And part of that might also be that something's kind of screwy with the reflex, because even if I turn off frame gen, the latency doesn't drop like you would expect it to. Frame gen should add latency. Oh, maybe, what did I was getting around 25, I thought. So blame Unreal Engine 4, I don't know. That's it. I see there's a couple of people watching me live. I hope this looks decent, and I hope it conveys what I'm trying to show. And it's that, hey, frame generation, it's not good. It's not a panacea. And ray tracing isn't all it's cracked up to be all the time, because it's up to game developers to make it work right. And if you're using Unreal Engine, my experience with Unreal Engine is that a lot of the games that use ray tracing with Unreal Engine 4 end up with a lot of micro stutters, and it sucks. I think there was, what, Star Wars Jedi Outcast maybe, or Jedi Survivor. I think those had ray tracing. I'm not sure if they're Unreal Engine. I think they are. But if you turned on ray tracing, they became super stuttery. So without ray tracing, things smooth down. If you turn ray tracing back on, then it gets yucky. But because this is like the 5090, I mean, why wouldn't you have ray tracing on? And the reason you wouldn't have it on is because we just went from hundreds of frames per second down to 60. Lovely. All right, that's it. I'm gonna get back to benchmarking. Thanks for watching. Do you like live videos like this, or do they suck? Let me know in the comments. Or you can just give it a thumbs down, I guess. Bury it in the YouTube algorithm. That's helpful. But seriously, let me know in the comments if you don't like these or if you do like them, because that will inform whether I try to do more of them. I thought I'd try it because this just came out today and I wanted to test it myself. My takeaway is ray tracing, ray reconstruction, and multi-frame generation in Hogwarts Legacy. It will smooth frame rates out by boosting things, but the experience is still not great because there's a lot of stuttering, and I would rather run the game without ray tracing. Personally, I think it just runs better and ends up being a better experience. We'll see you next time. Bye.